Film critic Radheyan Simonpillai joins me now from Toronto. So, Rad, we were talking about this, and I have to say my heart's broken. He was the true 007. Talk to us about what Sean Connery meant for the film industry. He really broke a number of barriers.
Well, I mean, the thing is, the 007 thing, it will always define him, right? I mean, even though this guy has had such a huge career over the years in all sorts of different roles, like, he played like Robin Hood, and he, like in these majestic kind of period pieces where he plays like knights and such from like the medieval times and things. But the 007 role is what we remember him for. It's Dr. No, that iconic moment where he looks out on the beach, sees Ursula come out of the water. And, like the reason why he's so kind of tied up with that role, not only because he originated the role, but he also, like, those first few Bond movies went through their own evolution where Dr. No was kind of a detective story, so you have Sean Connery as kind of a hard-edged detective, but along the way they get more extravagant and they get more like what we would make fun of a Bond movie for, with the crazy gadgets and stuff. Like, when you get to Goldfinger, it's this like out there thing. So Sean Connery took that role on a journey and gave us every kind of variation of the Bond role that you can get. So when Daniel Craig came along and is like, I'm giving you the hard-edged Bond, well, yeah, Sean Connery did that the first time around, right? So that's why he's so interlaced. But I mean, the legacy of him tied to Bond is also a legacy of misogyny. I noticed that, remembering Sean Connery is a complicated thing. We loved him, but we also have to address that this is a guy who, hey, played a misogynistic character in Bond, but he also, told Barbara Walters why it's okay to slap women on occasion, right? So, like there is a certain, an old school toxic masculinity tied up with him where we want to remember him for the great memories he gave us, but we also have to address that aspect of him.
It's interesting you mentioned Daniel Craig, and just sort of going back to the Bond situation, or the connection there. Daniel Craig said Connery defined an Aaron style, and that the wit and charm he portrayed on screen could be measured in megawatts. And I think that's what sort of a lot of people, as you're saying, are sort of connecting with as well. And as you mentioned there's also the sex symbol aspect to it as well. The tall, dark, and handsome that everyone connected
over this guy
with.
When he's 60.
Yeah.
He showed up in movies in the 90s, was it in the 90s or early 2000s, where he showed up in a movie opposite Catherine Zeta-Jones, Entrapment, and he still has, that voice, that accent, the salt and pepper beard. He was still a sex symbol, throughout the years, right? And it's funny how, that Bond role shaped all the roles that came after it, right? So, I mean, yes,
suaveness about him.
The suaveness, also, you think about one of his classic roles is The Hunt for Red October. What's The Hunt for Red October but him being in another spy movie that's part of the Jack Ryan series? That was America's answer. Let's give an American answer to the James Bond movie. So casting Sean Connery in that role, there's a wink there. Casting Sean Connery in The Rock, where he plays an old British spy who's been locked up for 50 years or something. There's always this nod to him being James Bond. He will always be that.
Really quickly, Rad, I'm almost out of time here, but what about sort of the fans, the cross-generational star that he is? And we mentioned that. We also mentioned, him being in sort of the other parts. Indiana Jones is the other one that I know my kids are going to remember him for, and playing Indiana Jones's dad, calling him Junior.
Exactly. Well, I mean, so you got the Indiana Jones fans who's going to remember him for that. You got you have a whole swath of different roles. For me, it's The Untouchables. The Brian De Palma movie where he plays the squad that went after Al Capone. That was his Oscar-winning role. He won Best Supporting Actor for that. I think we have so many different roles to remember him by. Again, Bond always eclipses most of them, but,
Well, as I said, he was always and always will be my favorite Bond, and it's sad. A lot of people are going to be mourning his loss. His son also saying that he died peacefully at his home in Bahamas. He was having some health conditions, health issues there, but certainly is going to be missed. Rad, thank you so much for this. Radheyan Simonpillai, our film critic in Toronto. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Angie. Talk soon.
Take care.